In a moment of quiet, an aristocrat of the railway remembers the days of glory. She was rescued and restored by volunteers, for this engine is something very special. In their time, she and her class were the undisputed masters of the East Coast Main Line. They were the fastest steam engines the world had ever seen, loved by both their crews and their passengers. Built in Doncaster with genuine pride, the A4 Pacific class 35 world-beating engines. Only 6 are left, 4 are here in Britain, and 1 is heading for a comeback on the main line. But not without a lot of work. Sir Nigel Gresley is more than 70 years old. To keep her going, she needs a regular overhaul. This one's taken 4 years.
Well, it's a colossal job, because as the locomotives become older and older, you get metal fatigue, and you've got to check more parts, and there's some very strict rules to work to them, because this engine is certified, or will be again, to run on the main line. Everything's got to be absolutely, in layman's terms, spot on.
Gresley is back at work on the North Yorkshire Moors Railway. Now there are plans to recapture her days of glory. This is the story of the veteran's return to the place she was built for, the open road, the main line. It's festival time on the Moors Railway. Only 3 of these A4 Pacific engines are still running in Britain, and today they're all together.
We've got 8 engines running this particular weekend, all from the London and North Eastern Railway. That in itself is a bit of a first in railway preservation, really since the days of British Railways in the 1960s, to get all these 8 engines together, both a magic sight and a magic sound. The centrepiece of these 2 weekends was always going to be the 3 A4 Pacifics, our own Sir Nigel Gresley here, Union South Africa down from Scotland, and Bittern coming up from Hampshire. You need a huge number of volunteers on a weekend such as this to drive and fire the locomotives, to operate the trains, to man the signal boxes, to run the stations, to staff the shops, to sell people cups of tea and sandwiches. So it is quite a logistical operation.
Big engines have big appetites. For coal and water, of course, but also for money. Keeping a classic on the rails is not cheap.
When you see the locomotive running, it makes it all worthwhile. I mean, it's a fantastic achievement. But also, throughout all the years that the locomotive was out of traffic, and still today, we're receiving many donations of £5, £7, £10, which, you know, we are entirely grateful to the members who make those donations to us, because without that, you know, the locomotive wouldn't run.
The romance of steam has a call far beyond the circle of enthusiasts. 300,000 people a year ride the North Yorkshire Moors Railway, and there are dozens more heritage lines all over the country. Nostalgia is back, and a smoky old steam engine has more glamour than a shed full of modern intercities. Ask any driver.
It's an LNER's fan's dream to have 3 A4s together, 3 of the most wonderful machines in the world, and there's only 6 left, and they're far better than anything that anybody else ever built.
If there's one engine I want to see on the front of a train, it's an A4 Pacific. Even now in 2008, they can outperform size for size, weight for weight, any other steam locomotive.
Well, they're marvellous engines. There was, considering when they were built, they were way before the time. They were marvellous machines.
I look at an engine, especially if I see one in steam, and stand beside it. Did I used to drive these? Because there's so much power. There's nothing else like it, really.
I did my career 48 years, and someone said it was a crazy job. I said, perhaps it was. I said, better do it all again.
I'm damn sure they can get back on the footplate of an A4 and handle it correctly. All right, the signalling systems change a little, but yes, if it's in you, isn't it? Steam in the blood, isn't it, really? Yeah.
In the world of steam, the high-speed A4s are the elite. But this line's just 18 miles long, with a top speed of 25 miles an hour. So Gresleys like a racehorse kept in a backyard. That's why the Moors Railway want to give her a chance on the main line. It's what she and her class were built for.
They were designed to run up and down the East Coast Main Line at speed, and whilst it's wonderful to have the locomotive here, from my point of view as the General Manager of the North Yorkshire Moors Railway, I'd be delighted if the engine was running every day just between Pickering and Gromont. But I do recognise that there really is something rather special about seeing an engine such as this running across through the Vale of York, running over its old stamping ground down to London and up to Edinburgh. There really is a particular magic of that, and I think it's very understandable that people will want to see that, as well as being able to come and travel on the engine here, see it at close quarters between Pickering and Gromont.
A classic engine has to be thoroughly tested before she's allowed to run on the railway network. In the good old days, of course, it wasn't that hard.
We used to run it up and down on a half-mile piece of track, probably for a week, and everybody came, the boiler examiner came, and the mechanical engineers came, they gave you a certificate, and then just hook onto a rake of coaches and go on a test run. Everything was all right, that was it, you were back on. Now that has all changed because the amount of paperwork is absolutely astronomical. Some of it was necessary, right? But it really has gone overboard. It's a paperwork exercise beyond belief.
You're my thrill, you do something to me.
A steam train is a powerful cocktail of fire, glamour and romance. Run her through a superb landscape and you've got a commercial winner. A new golden age of steam.
How my pulse increases, I just go to pieces when I look at you, 'cause you're my thrill. You're my thrill.
Sir Nigel has star quality. She's a crowd pleaser on the Moors Railway and a big draw at the ticket office.
Going back onto the main line, it is completely different. It has a very special attraction, but at the same time, it is much more difficult now to run out there than it was, say, 20 or 30 years ago.
Coming up in part 2, we're aboard Sir Nigel for the crucial test run as she goes all out for her mainline ticket. This is the day of the big test. If Gresley is ever to get back on the main line, this is the one she's got to pass. She's stopped to take on water at Hellifield in the Yorkshire Dales.
The purpose of today's run is purely and simply to do a loaded test run, which is part of our certification. This is the final hurdle. Once we've been successful today, we get the piece of paper. We've got a temporary piece of paper at the minute to run today. Everything's all right by 7 o'clock tonight. That is it. We can go anywhere on the main line.
She's hauling a heavy load, but Gresley rises to the challenge.
Incredible load, really. It's 550 tonnes because we've got the diesel on the back, which isn't doing any work, of course. That's a safety precaution because it is a test run. Yeah, it's an incredible load.
Once the engine gets up to about 60 miles an hour, the character of the machine changes altogether. The machine is designed to run at 70 plus on the East Coast main line. And that's really, when she gets up into the 60s and 70 miles an hour, that's when she's sort of settles down and really starts to operate the way she was designed to.
After a test run of nearly 100 miles, the veteran rolls into Carnforth in Lancashire, and a couple of happy, mucky men climb down from the cab.
Totally passed.
Absolutely.
Yes, totally passed
Completely satisfied with everything.
Green signal.
Completely. She now can be let loose anywhere.
Whether we can or not,
So
I
do
don't
we.
know.
The rail network has changed a lot since Gresley's glory days half a century ago. She needs a job out there, but what kind of job? If anyone knows, it's a firm that operates classic trains.
I think it's all about knowing your limits and the art of the possible. You do have the laid down criterion limits of speed and capacity on the railway to do certain things and time taken to do it. But, you know, these old girls are, they are museum pieces at the end of the day. You know, you're looking at doing nice days out to the seaside or to a destination that's interesting, and this is a traditional day out, and you're just really trying to, you know, remarket it and fit it within that framework. But really, it's all about the art of the possible, understanding what you can do, and being realistic about it.
It's gone down really, really well. We've been amazed how quickly people have gotten onto the idea of the Cottonman Express, and the response so far has been absolutely superb. Out of the trains that we've run in January, February, March, April, May, June and July, 5 have been complete sellouts, so we're absolutely delighted with the response.
Cheers!
The passengers have paid good money to travel in style. They want the steam experience made easy. This is not a train spotter's marathon.
Some of the trips do tend to go on a long time. You've got to be really hard and enthusiastic to go on them because you can have 7 or 8 hours with only short breaks, and if you're up early and back late, it makes for a long day.
The man from Network Rail reckons trips like this could be one way ahead for Sir Nigel Gresley.
It's not fast. It's got some exciting scenery. It's the dramatic Pennine Hills, and that involves some interesting climbing, interesting work by the locomotive. But it's away from the big main lines onto the smaller secondary lines. And even though it means keeping its head amongst the Transpennine trains, we can do that. And I'm quite keen to see more of this encouraged. I think the main lines are going to become increasingly difficult, certainly as we see the service levels increase on the West Coast Main Line, as the Pendolino services intensify and become faster and faster. Finding paths for steam haul trains gets more and more difficult. There's enormous attraction in, yes, steam hauled at 75 miles an hour for mile after mile after mile, and Network Rail has no wish to bring an end to that. We will continue to make that possible where we can. But what we really want to do is help people to look for the sensible solutions.
At 51 miles an hour we're doing at the moment. When we went into the tunnel we were doing 25 miles an hour. So we speeded up during the tunnel. And as we're coming out of the tunnel, obviously we're going downhill into Huddersfield.
Steam, yeah, it's just something about it.
It just brings back so many happy memories.
Take me back to my childhood.
Nostalgia more than anything.
This is a whole 5 hours on the train, and I think that's fantastic. Plus a nice lunch. That's something to drink.
Taking the trains out. Flying the planes out. Flying the planes out, taking the trains out, chasing after you.
One of the difficulties that everybody faces in bringing a steam train onto the network is the problem of where you get your water along the line of route, because of course back in British Rail days when steam trains went everywhere, there were water facilities everywhere, and steam train operators today and the locomotive owners have to be very, very innovative and resourceful. Sometimes the fire service is asked to come along, sometimes there's a convenient water hydrant. There are several companies who operate a water tanker service. It's quite difficult, and of course not only is it difficult to find the source of water, we also have to provide a place to stop for 15, 20, 30, sometimes 40 minutes, and that can be quite a challenge when you're trying to find somewhere to lay a 11, 12 coach train to one side, let traffic past it. It's got to be somewhere where there's road access for a tanker, and it can be a very, very major constraint.
Thanks for the boogie ride, thank you, thanks for the boogie ride, thank you, thanks for the boogie ride. It's out of this world.
The Cotton Mill Express trundles back into Manchester from a 100-mile round trip. Across the Pennines with champagne and steam. An old-fashioned grand day out. Back on the Moors Railway, Gresley is off to Whitby. For the engine and the town, it's another first.
Very significant day indeed, actually. It's the first time an A4 Pacific's ever gone into Whitby. The problem is that the curves are too tight, so this is a one-off today and a one-off tomorrow. But we can't do it regularly. Another milestone day, believe it or not. We're getting a few lately. Look at that. The nicest man on the job here.
It's a publicity trip to launch the railway's new season. Whitby's never seen anything like it. Gresley is becoming a star, and that's good news for her future in the wider world.
Wonderful, isn't it wonderful? Yes, I mean, it gets Whitby Station known, and hopefully they'll all come back and ride on the train some more.
Next time, Sir Nigel Gresley's back on the main line at last. It's the big test, flat out for London King's Cross.